Hello, friends. Hello, greetings, ladies, gentlemen, and NBs. It's Warui Deshou. It's our Stream of Thought podcast. Vodcast?
Podcast. Oh man!
Remember
Put that on a note somewhere, Doc, for later because we're gonna use that.
vodcast?
If we ever Fartcast, like if we ever start, I misheard that because I thought you said Fartcast, and then my thinking was, all right, that's it. That's the name of our philosophy podcast set. Then there we go, done.
Yeah. Of course, if you misheard it that way, you could have potentially misheard it as THOT cast, which would be a completely, totally different discussion about anime characters.
That and one I will not take part in. I mean, I have some dignity, and I sure
Yes.
as shit ain't naming a podcast after that.
That would be bad. That would be bad.
We'll leave it to people like One Angry Gamer who recently lost his shit over a sex scene in Castlevania, and I'm just like, mate, grow the fuck up. Seriously. That's a discussion you and I will have another time, though.
That's it. You're just spoiling me, and now I know there's a sex scene in Castlevania Season 3. Thanks a lot, Shadon. Thanks a whole bunch, ruining it for me.
It's all right, Doc. It'll be good for you too.
The surprise sex is always. Listen, that's you've taken something very particular and special away from me. I hope you know. What is the red behind you? The red.
Oh, that's a
poofy
random Chinese paper lantern I found.
I really like that.
It's just tats, so I thought, fuck it. I need to get more stuff for this place, because that area over there is a bit plain at the moment. I have a few ideas, not least of which is I found a dartboard inside a shed outside. So I'm planning on cleaning that up.
You got to set that up every single week with like different.
I know exactly where I'm going with this. The only problem is that I have a fear that if I had people around, they would think that it was for play rather than ornamentation. So eventually, this whole wall over here would just look like it's been hit by bullets or something. Anyway, look forward to that bit of DIY with Shadon coming soon to a podcast near you.
You just put the darts away when company is there, so no one can, use the dartboard. But then when it's time to stream, you just print out a picture of Hero from Darlifra and shove it up there with darts in it.
That's low hanging fruit. Come on, I'd have to go harder than that. That'd have to be Naofumi. It would easily have to be him. That prick.
Well, so that's also, well, you know what? Let's not get into an argument about which fruit is the lowest hanging.
Oh, Jesus.
Welcome, by the way, Sophie. Hello. And Grizz commenting on the lava lamp. It's the 100% approval rating. It's the only thing that everyone on stream can agree on is that the lava lamp is very good.
No love for Cheryl, no love for Solar Kai.
Well, I do, but I'm saying there are probably dissidents in the chat or viewing the VOD that don't care for Cheryl.
From my sight. Out of the way, you proles.
That is a bot, you see, and so I'm gonna kick the bot.
Yeah, I'm not going to type Asian Crips into anything, to be quite honest.
What a weird combination of words. Anyway, I hope all of you WD fam are doing well out there. Mm-hmm. Shadon, I hope your Monday has gone well. Mine's in the process of going well.
It's been okay. I mean, well, I say okay. I had the most amazing homemade burgers before.
Saw those on Twitter. They look nice.
Oh yes. Getting back into the cooking, folks. I'm starting to do more and more homemade stuff rather than relying on crap that I end up buying, pizzas, freezer shit, that kind of thing. And it's going pretty well, I must say. I mean, I had a chicken black bean for lunch today, which I made myself. So, get it. Oh my God, Gero, you're right. I'm...
The burger is one of the two prime mushroom delivery devices. You got the burger and the pizza, both chances to do your fallen brother proud, and you fucked up, man. I'm not gonna mince words. You really fucked up.
It's only up from here, to be honest, though.
That's right.
I'm as low as I've been in 2020 now that I found that out, and it can only get better. So, well, thank you for pointing out, Gero. Now I may correct the error of my ways. Repent for my sins.
Well, before we repent, I think it's time we turn back to Twitter and look at the polls from last week. By the way, if you didn't know, I don't remember if I said this or not. We're talking about keep your hands off Eizouken. You should probably see
really?
that. Yeah, yep.
My God.
Get those notes. We're not talking about burger recipes and whatnot. We are talking about anime. We're talking about the hit show of the season and the year thus far. Keep Your Hands Off Eizouken, the Science Saru Masaki Yuasa directed masterpiece. I'm just gonna say it. I'm gonna put that out there right now because nothing in the next 2 weeks, in my opinion, can take that status away from this show.
I mean, why? I mean, come on, Doc. There's nothing wrong with telling the truth.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I will say now, by the way, folks, I do regret missing out on a golden opportunity for this episode, which was to bike slide into my camera frame. I mean,
that wouldn't be safe, though. I mean, come on.
Come on. It's my house. Do I like? I mean, yeah, it probably would have ended incredibly badly, but hey, it would have been worth it. We'd have totally gone viral if I'd done. Although that would also mean I'd have to somehow slide away from the camera towards all my stuff.
That's
there.
a very difficult feat. Yeah.
Yeah, I need a running start for that, and there certainly isn't enough room for it. So, thoughts of the future when we next get the inevitable Kira reference that will keep coming around and around. Which, by the way, all for it. Keep them coming.
We could always do the super low budget version, which is just you posing on the bike and then me just zooming out and adding in sound effects.
We really are doing the Eizouken now, aren't we? This is our greatest
this
the
corner cutting.
How does Shadon do an Akira bike slide in his living room? I'll figure out someday. Maybe I'll do it on a tiny little tech deck or something like that. I don't know.
Well, look. Before we talk about Akira, etc., we have to talk about. We have to talk about the polls for episode 9. We have to close the loop on those. So, in case you didn't know, every week we have these while we're streaming at Warui Deshou on Twitter to vote in them. And you have a whole week to vote on them. And then after that, we read the final results, which we're about to do now for episode 9.
Indeed. All right, so I'll take it away. Poll number 1. Do you know what Dragon's Den is? And 52% you said yes, 48% said no. I suppose the corollary to that is, do you give a fuck what Dragon's Den is? I sure shit don't. I hear people talking about it at work occasionally. I'm just here man, I wonder what's on CrunchyRoll tonight. I could not give less of a toss about this topic of conversation. But hey, fair play if you like it.
Is the host a famous person? You don't know. No one knows. I'm not going to Google it. I refuse. I'm drawing the line in the sand right here.
Dragon's done. I don't know. Don't care.
Mr. Dragon.
Anyway, I don't know.
Den the Dragon. Denver. Denver is short for... Yeah, Den is short for Denver. The Last Dragon. Do you remember the show Denver the Last Dinosaur? Do you remember that cartoon?
Nope.
The fucking banger of an OP. Denver the Last Dinosaur. He's my friend and a whole lot more. It's so good. Iconic.
I feel like there's a YouTube link being sent my way in my immediate future. Just a premonition here, folks.
Could be. Yeah, totally.
All right. So, poll number 2. This is where we get to sort out the liars from the people who tell the truth here. Is there anything fun about social media? 23% of you said yes. And I'm just like...
well, it's like what Alex said, right?
Please tell us.
It's like what Alex said, he met us. We met a few people.
This is true. I mean, I like Twitter infinitely more than I liked Facebook when I was on it, because all I ever saw on Facebook were baby pictures. I was just like, I could not, again, going to repeat what I said before about Dragon's Den, could not give less of a shit. And I also had to deal with some of the more odious members of my family through that, so I sacked that off right fast. And Twitter's infinitely more interesting because I get to see wonderful things like hot takes, people dunking on politicians, great fan art, and of course, dogs. How can you go wrong with fucking dogs, honestly?
Perfect. If you've got your timeline curated to just that, excuse me, I bumped the microphone. If you have your feed showing only those 4 things, you're doing great. You're doing exceptional.
I'm mostly there. It's just unfortunately how I also learned of one angry gamer who I think is quite possibly my most hated person of this week thus far. I mean, it's an early week. Maybe he can actually, turn it around and, prove to me that he's not a complete tosser. But hey, we'll find out. All right.
I'm going to say no. This is an interesting question, though, from Cesar. Like, I've wondered this before because it often gets lumped in with other social sites, like, because you share stuff.
I would disagree and say it is, depending on the content you're doing. If you're doing a lot of hyper-real vlog kind of stuff, which is very slice of life, like particularly very personality-driven stuff, I would say it is.
I think it is a
personality in the persona on Twitter in much the same way.
I would think that the way I would look at it is that it is a video storage, sharing, and archival site first, and a social network second.
Could you argue that maybe might be the same about Twitter, though, to be fair?
No, I think Twitter is a social network first.
Not all tweets are necessarily about social networking, though. Some of them are meant to inform, some are meant to be commentary, some of them are fan art. I think there's more grey system, All right, you know what we're going to do, Doc? We're going to save this.
It's a poll.
We're saving this for after hours. We're saving this for after hours. But otherwise, 77% of you rightly made the assertion that no, social media isn't fun at all. It's just complete fucking torture. And especially when you're living in the times we do now where, hey, you know what? There might be a particularly, how should we say, virulent disease going around. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make shit up about it.
Do you think WordPress is social media?
Yes.
Or Blogger? No, you can't. A blogging platform. No.
I was about to start making other jokes like, do you think the local supermarket's notice board is social media?
Yes. The quest board in The Witcher or the fucking... Is that social media?
Does Geralt tweet or would he tweet?
Yes.
That's a question for a different day.
For sure.
All right. Okay, poll number 3. Would you describe Kaminari as a social media maven? 83% of you said something that I can't read out loud. It's unintelligible nonsense. Like, if I feed this through Google Translate, the internet will go down. So I'm not doing it. Fuck that.
You have to try.
No. I mean, if the internet goes down, that's at the end of our podcast, at least for this week. Anyway, 17% of you said no. And I'll take a quick aside here to answer Sophie's question and say, all social media has a parasocial element to it, depending on the level of interactivity you have with your hosts. I mean, you and I are technically talking right now, even though we're doing it through different means. You do it through text chat, I'm here, doing it through audio and video. But even then, it still has that parasocial element. And then you go all the way to the other end where people flat will never respond to you because how can you? So I'd say all social media does, and I think YouTube does that as well, because there is a comment section. You can try and comment and reply to creators, and they are well within their right not to respond because they can or won't. So
yeah,
there you go.
That's the only social networking piece of it. IMO.
Unless you can response videos, but well, that's a different thing inside.
Yeah. Anyway,
next up, poll number 4. Would you believe Kepi from Sarah's Amai was supposed to make a cameo appearance, but was so high he forgot? We misspelled one of the answers on here because there weren't enough using it, so I'm going to substitute them in now. And 79% of you said, dude! And 21% of you said, dude? So, I do think we were deprived of a Kepi cameo, though I'm still very sad about that. But,
another mention in this episode of the Kappa.
This is true. I mean, if fan artists want to make it happen, I'll have a look at it. Why not? Next question. Poll number 5. Did Kaminari blind you with science? And I really should have led into the actual song then, but, well, it's been a long time since I played MGS5 and listened to that firsthand. So, anyway, 90% said...
Is that in Metal Gear 5?
It is, yeah. She blinded me with science.
That's good.
Yep, it's in there. 90% of you said, owie, yes. And 10% of you said, I'm not looking on purpose. Or purpose, I presume. Yeah. I'm guessing that you ran out of letters and you had to just kind of squeeze it in.
I don't, maybe. I don't remember. Mm-hmm. But we can all understand.
Undoubtedly. Next and final question is: I once witnessed the death of a liquor store. In fact, no, wait. Sorry, let's try again. Is I once witnessed the death of a liquor store. The greatest beginning to a monologue ever. It's also incidentally the name of my autobiography in a couple of years' time, so do check that out when it comes out. 86% you said yes, and 14% you said no, and you're wrong, and you should be ashamed of yourself. That's the polls.
Where's the lie? I find none. I'm in 100% agreement with you.
So you're right. There'll be more polls coming up soon. I've already actually preloaded 3 of them. So there'll be more coming along later. Check that out in the YouTube chat when I put them in there.
We're going to send them to you all through the Twitter machine. If you're following us at Warui Deshou on Twitter, please do, so you can participate in the vote. I guess you don't have to vote, obviously, but like it's just easier. You just get them sent straight to you rather than having to go find them.
Competitions where they say no actual participation required on the text. You don't have to send shit in to us at our PO box or whatever it all in.
We are in that territory now, but we would like you to vote because just as some practice, let's have a try. Let's do a practice, to show you voting is good. Voting works. Voting leads to good outcomes. And just this is our world at stake only. That's it. That's all. So do the voting and practice with Warui Deshou. But now, segue time. From you guys doing the Twitter polls to me talking about creatives. That's not a segue at all. But we're going to now talk about the episode director, very briefly here, of episode 10, Against Our Independent World, or Dokuji Sekai no Tairitsu, Against Our Independent World. Episode director, Fuga Yamashiro. Yamashiro has directed episode 4 of Eizouken, the Hold That Machete Tight episode, the excellent episode 4. Mm-hmm. They also did the storyboard for that episode, and they are credited on ANN as assistant director for the entire project.
They're also credited in this episode twice, as it happened.
Oh, yes, that's true. On the on the computer screen.
Yeah, I look forward to talking about that moment because that did make me chuckle.
That'll be fun. So the only other credit they have on ANN, Yamashiro-san, is production office for the Lou Over the Wall film, which I believe is coming to American Netflix this week. So if you have not seen it, if you haven't picked it up, or whatever, you will have the chance to check that movie out. That is a wonderful, wonderful little family film from Yuasa. That is, I want to say that's a 2018 movie, the year that he made 2 movies, which is just bonkers.
Because he can.
Mm-hmm, I know. Either 2018 or 2019. It's a very recent production, either way. But yeah, that is the director. I'm going to Google this in real time here because we have the end card illustration by Rodrigo Makoto Matsumura. So Rodrigo Makoto Matsumura, did I say? I've already forgotten the name. Matsumura, yep. Pressing enter. All right. So this is the CV of the individual that did the end card illustration, which is really fun this week. It's very like angular, very square. Something about it feels very 90s to me as well. I really enjoy. I mean, and Asakusa looks particularly frog-like in this. But it looks like Matsumura has done digital animation on every episode of Eizouken except episodes 7 and 10. They're credited with doing some animation for the ending. And, like almost everyone involved with this project, they were involved with Super Shiro. They did animation direction for episode 11 of Super Shiro. And we've been talked about that a lot. We've mentioned Super Shiro. It looks like it's a short thing. I don't really know. It hasn't been reviewed on this site, Anime News Network. But it is something that started last October. And yeah, I'm guessing that it's just a little short. Yep, it is a series of shorts from last year. I don't know if it's still ongoing or not, but do write in, Super Shiro fans and admirers.
All right, then.
Yeah, we are now. That is it for the creatives portion. So,
all right. Now's the time to talk about the meat of the episode.
Yes. It's time for the summary. Summary brought to you by the sound of Shadon's hands rubbing together. It's a glorious, glorious piece of audio.
The last part of the episode, actually.
Okay, so episode 10.
Please don't go sound hunting around my house.
No, this is right. Don't do the sound hunting where you don't have permission. Episode 10, a.k.a. the Kana Money episode.
Oh, man.
So the episode begins with the Eizouken in its clubhouse, drawing, hanging out, listening to music, just chilling, being cool. And Kanamori notices that Mizusaki has some issues with her tan lines, and she's like, yo, is this an issue? And Mizu's like, nope, because I haven't gotten any modeling gigs lately because I just don't care right now. And Kanamori is basically like, yeah, guess what? You're going to have to start caring again because you being famous is a draw for the Eizouken. It is an interest generator. It's a big hook. So you're going to have to put yourself out there some more. It's not... And they've already kind of been through this, really. This whole, like, but the Eizouken can't be about me being a model. Well, it's the way to get them in the door. Yeah, right.
By the way, can I point out what I loved is that when Asuka's like steps up and goes, it's all about the animation. Like the actual animation of her doing that is in itself really elaborate.
Mm-hmm.
I was like,
yes.
That's great. I love it.
It was a good touch.
Bang! Shot down.
And when Kanamori, by the way, is doing this, like, it's sort of a low-angle shot, like, kind of looking up at her as she's being tall and imposing and she's talking. And one thing I noticed is, like, you get a really good view of her hands. She's, like, holding her cell phone, just like, hand, Kanamori hand, and then other Kanamori hand. And I was looking at some other shots for, like, Asakusa's hands and stuff. It's really interesting, like... And I haven't really paid super much attention to this the whole time, but like, it will be interesting to go back and look because I feel like the way that they draw the hands is sort of this goes back to what we were talking about very early on with it wanting to be the show really wanting to be kind of gender neutral in terms of its characters and the way that they move. And, this just happens to be three girls, but, like, it doesn't have to be. It's not about that part of it necessarily. And I think that the way they show the hands in such detail is sort of, like, in contrast to a way that hands of, like, hot anime babes and or cute moe girls' hands are shown. I wanted to wake you up. But
you know what? No, just carry on. Mm-hmm.
So
I know I will try to anyway.
Yes, hands is in all caps in my notes here, but so yes, Kanamori pushing, and again, like I said, they kind of have been through this already, but like I don't know, this sort of is good. It makes sense, right? Mizu still kind of, not that she doesn't understand Kanamori's point of view, but like, I don't wanna, like, I just want to animate, like, can't we just be about the animation? It's good. And the plan that Kanamori is putting into motion here is sending out a flyer digitally on social media, etc., of having a voice acting competition for... it wasn't clear to me what roles, but I guess, like, judging by the amount of submissions they got and the paper that you showed me the screenshot, it looks like for all parts.
Man.
all parts.
This man. If there's one thing I love about shows like Eizouken is that there's oftentimes a lot of like moments where you can just freeze frame on it, and there's just so much detail to drink in, so many in jokes. Because, well, first off, the gentleman who we mentioned before, who directed this episode, is actually in this audition folder. And then secondly, there's also two other names that you will undoubtedly notice, one of which is Young Chai, who I believe is one of the senior creators. I don't know the specific role names.
Yeah.
So
she's a very, like, a top person, I think, in Science Saru.
And the other, of course, is Mr. Masaki Yuasa himself. So it looks like all of the members of Science Saru, or at least a substantial number of them, have actually auditioned for voice acting roles in the UFO battle anime, which is just great. Like, I love little like in jokes like that, but it only gets better because after that they then go on to like the next page, which is listing all of their professions. And first off, Young Choi is noted as a hyper content creator, something like that. I'm like, well, look at the show. I think you can all agree on that. Can we not? But then the best one is that it turns out Masaki Yuasa is a patissier. He makes pastries and sweets from France. And I'm like,
that's so good.
I mean, the man is a chef in the anime. Like, he's a fucking artist, as I'm concerned. So if it turned out he was also a master at making choux pastry, I'd believe it. I would totally believe it. I mean, you could just imagine what the bake days at Science Saru are like. You know, he's not only a great director, but he just comes in with a giant tray of fucking, like, you know, cream fingers or whatever. Man. That
would be great.
Little details. Love him.
That would be great. So, yeah, Mizu is going to be the judge for this voice acting contest. And again, as a sort of publicity kind of thing, I think it's much less about, like, getting the absolute best voice talent and finding the right roles, and more about, like, again, advertising, putting themselves out there, attaching the Eizouken to this famous Insta model Mizusaki, and yeah, just garnering attention and fame in the economy of attention, as Peter Coffin would, I think, put it. Interesting, like, thing that I noticed here also is Kanamori is badgering Asakusa to finish the storyboards, to finish the writing, right? She's the director. The storyboards dictate, like, what can be done in other areas of the production. They are, like, foundational. And it's interesting that she being Asakusa, right, and Mizusaki are, like, riffing, coming up with different scenes, like doing the finale. Oh, it's a party. The finale will be a party in Shibama. Or here's, like, this cool battle scene. But there's no script. You know what I mean? There's Kanamori says, like, stop
Kanamori's
doing...
like, hold up. And like, what she's after in non-certain terms is a kind of internal consistency, a logical consistency. And fair play to her. I mean, granted, that's not always necessary in all art, but I think that maybe she's asking for that, not necessarily so much for the sake of the actual work itself making sense, but more just to keep Asakusa on track. Because if there's one thing Asakusa does this episode, is that she goes bouncing all over the place like a pinball in terms of, like, being distracted by coming with great, like, crazy ideas for things, which all are great in their own right. Don't get me wrong. But as, well, Kanamori rightly puts it, how about we kind of, you know, finish this one first? Maybe? Yeah,
or, like, how she thinks she says, like, you know, you can't be in the weeds so much until you have an idea of the overall picture. I think she talks about, like, you got to have the big picture worked out. We need to know who the villains are. We need to know why they're here. Because if you focus on these other details, like, so much, it's going to, again, put everybody else behind schedule. And also, it's just difficult to, like you said, make a coherent kind of project when there's not, like, a structural outline. And I think this is, like, the kind of thing that I was thinking about like all those years ago when I made that Gundam Thunderbolt commentary and engaged and engaged with like some people about like that were very like aggressive, saying like, you know, animation is more important than the story. Animation story doesn't matter. Animation is primary.
If you followed this podcast for any length of time, you know what my feeling. So,
yeah, no, for sure. But what was I saying? Shoot.
You were saying it reminded you of that.
I'm unglued for some reason.
It reminded you of the Gundam Thunderbolt finger you were referring to, Asuka's like sense of structure.
Yeah, like, and when like I said, I talked to some people that were just very, and I don't mind the idea that like animation is more important than the story or whatever, but like they were that's an opinion you can have, and that's like totally valid, and I don't really take umbrage with that, but like it was the argument I was engaging with was very much like, you know, animation, like basically the writing has no importance in anime. Animation is everything. Animation, and it was basically, I came to find out sort of a semantic argument, because I was like, what about the storyboards? And they were like, that's animation. What about this? Well, that's the animation. What about the director? It's like, director does that.
What about bring a cup of coffee? Animation.
Right. So it's just
like filing your tax returns. Animation.
Yeah. What about making copies? Animation. Yeah, it was like the visuals, like everything that was sort of what I would think of as writing was sort of subsumed under the visuals. And maybe that's the lesson, is that like in anime they're just so inextricably linked that it's hard to like suss out what's what. But I think what I was more maybe trying to get at back then was that anime isn't just like some people going into a room and drawing a bunch of random shit. Like there has to be a plan. There has to be an idea of like, apart from what's down on paper, there has to be like a structural outline. What is it that we're going to tell? What is it that we're going to draw? Like, it can't just be a random series of images, right? It's going to be like something happening. What is happening? What are we going to say? What are we going to show? What are we going to try to say? Like all that stuff. And I think like the Miyazaki beard was amazing. That part, I wrote that down in the margins, like, is this a Hayao Miyazaki cosplay? I think yes. The color of plaid definitely gives that away. Anyway,
I've seen pictures with comparisons. It definitely is him.
Okay, good. I figured as much.
Before I forget, folks, just to intervene, all of the polls are now up as well, so do check them out at Warui Deshou on Twitter. There are 5 of them. I've actually prepared ahead of time, so get on that.
Boom. How many are up?
5.
5 whole polls. Do vote now, and again, we'll read you we'll update you on the results at the end of the episode, how they're going. So anyway, this is going on, and then the student council shows up. The very vocal secretary is there, and I think the red-haired girl is the president, the very sort of emotive, loud, screamy person, and the chiller lady is the secretary. She often, though, is sort of cast in the role of like the leader. She's really running things. And
if I may note back to something Cesar said in chat earlier about how they were all. I agree with you, Cesar. And the only thing that's missing is I think it's the katakana or whatever it is for menacing that appears in JoJo's.
Mm-hmm.
They needed to have that as well.
So the Eizouken is summoned to like the school, a board meeting, or like to meet with like the principal and the vice principal, top school officials, because Eizouken is making money from their DVD sales, and this is very bad for some reason. This meeting is about why it's bad, trying to convince them that it's bad and not to do it, before they just straight up tell them okay, arguing, it doesn't matter. You just can't do this. There's some really great stuff in this scene.
Oh yeah.
The like Bakemonogatari like looking up of Kaminari.
An expression I've had numerous times in my life.
And then the secretary will not be outdone, and so she's walking around like this with her head back. It's incredible. It's there was neck by off.
The way, speaking of the secretary, I want to give her a shout out for what I think is possibly the most amazing bit of shade under the table that I have ever seen in anime, like, or at least in recent anime. And it goes something a bit like this. Kaminari like says something to the effects of, "Good God, the only people who ever become teachers are fools." And then of course, you get the president who's just like, "No, all teachers are amazing.
How dare you?" Yes. Objection.
And then, of course, the secretary says, "You know, I think you might make a good teacher someday." And I'm like, love it. Oh, get burned.
That's right, Saphir Night. Definitely full shaft, I felt in those moments. But yeah, no, that was also some amazing shade. I loved that too. I also loved listen, I'm considering this a Jeweler Richard shout-out.
Oh, the leg cross.
Yes!
Shit, yes!
Yes!
That's the power move. That is the power move of our times.
It just suddenly cuts to Kaminari crossing her legs. In a way different from Richard. But still crossing her legs. It's full frame. This is happening.
She like clasps her hands together and just like, well.
Royal milk tea, please, Asakusa. Yeah, she does that before going on to crush them all. And I really love everything about the discussion in the scene, but I think we should probably save it for the discussion section of the pod.
Yeah, I do have a fair bit to say on this.
Mm-hmm. So, again, basically, it's the school sort of trying to argue down the Eizouken. Can't really do it, so in the end they just say, well, guess what? You're doing things our way. Just deal with it. And then we get, we get a montage. We get one of two montages. This is the longer of the two. And we see Mizuzaki doing a new advertisement. She's doing a new shoot. We see Asakusa doing her animations, drawings. And then, of course, we see the voice acting competition flyer get sent out. We see Grandma. She mad at that this is going on, but this shit is happening, so just deal with it. What did I write here? Oh my goodness. Oh, okay. I can read it now. Yeah.
You should have held it up to your camera, Doc, so we could have tried to.
It's rough looking, dude. I don't want to hurt anybody.
It's probably better than my handwriting, to be fair. Mine is. I mean, I don't know. If people discover like my notes on anime, like in, say 20,000 years time, imagine your aliens rifling through the ruins of Earth. They'll pick my notes and be like, "What the fuck is this?" They won't even be like, "We cannot possibly understand the genius of this man." They'll be like, "No, this is dog shit." Gone.
So this is like Navy brings up a really interesting thing. Did you have that as a talking point, or should we talk about it?
We can save it for later, but I think it is an excellent observation.
Okay, do you? Okay, I don't have a note on that, but do you have a note on that? I don't want to forget it.
Well, I did have something to say in tandem with that about the whole discussion, so we'll probably end up touching on that anyway, because I do want to talk about money specifically, but we'll come to that after the summary.
All right, I'm just making a note. So not money, efficiency, because I'd like to kind of break that down and try. Is that our new
Patreon strategy?
Yep, that's it. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, we see a really interesting attempt to go into the greatest world in this episode, because they start to go in, and has this happened before where the story's not complete and Kaminari pulls her out of it, basically?
We've seen moments where the greatest world has been stopped dead in its tracks by outside interruptions, but nothing that kind of, to my memory, kind of bridges the two here, where literally she's like, stop, boop, boop, boop. And then in a really, really nice visual touch, by the way, the reason that like the people inside the UFOs, they're so badly drawn because they are literally the last thing that Asakusa's thought of when composing this scene. And I'm glad that they actually brought that into focus as a visual way of explaining that. That was really neat.
I know. And I really liked the fact that she melted into the ground. And Mizusaki,
this was also after the... Sorry, go on.
Oh, Mizusaki is just always like along for the ride, having fun. No matter what happens, she's just like, Asaka's melted into the ground. Isn't that great? I love
she's
that.
So funny.
I love that.
This is after the Miyazaki thing, which is also in its own right great. I wonder what his reaction would be to seeing this, because if I may say so, I'm fairly confident from memory that Miyazaki has gone on record saying that he hates stuff like 3D CG and things like that.
He do.
And yet Science Saru, and I can say this with pretty much certainty, given I've seen it in both Ride Your Wave and in Eizouken, and I'm fairly confident Crybaby also used it as well, the shows that I've seen. Like, they do utilize those tools.
They do.
So it feels interesting to me to see that they're shouting him out, but they're doing things that he would find antithetical to the nature of creating anime, which, I don't know, I'm sure there's a lesson to be learned in there somewhere. We can probably make up more jokes about quotes about him that never actually were true or deeply misattributed here. But yeah, nice shout nonetheless, though.
Yeah. Maybe trying to, like, bring the Grumpy Papa into...
Cesar makes a great point. What if it turned out the final boss, if you would, of Eizouken is Miyazaki? What if Miyazaki's the one who needs to keep his...
Oh, surely they won't do that, though. Surely they won't...
No, I know.
throw shade at one of the Godfathers.
There we
go. Yes, please do that. But yeah, like, maybe the idea is to try to, like, I don't know, bring Grumpy Papa into the fold somehow, like, by showing him in an approving light, or, like, I don't know, just referencing him at all, like, sort of, I don't know, maybe he just needs to see the right things. I don't really know how much anime he watched. I mean, he says he doesn't really like anime. In other words, like, what anime is and what it's become, the content. But we're not talking about Ghibli-man. We're talking about Domeki taking the first nap ever in her entire life, which was incredible. Like, what a great moment. Like, these little, like, almost vignettes. Like, I talked about it last week, with the kind of quiet, like, they're kind of wandering through the city, and it's very chill, and not really much is happening to push forward the story. This is that kind of scene, and these are really, like, humanizing, and they're really fun, and they make it feel like that the show is half an hour spent hanging out with your friends, and not just a didactic, like, here's why anime is cool.
That's such an incredible way of putting it. And now that you said that, it makes me feel very sad that it'll only be 2 weeks from yesterday that we will see the final episode. Oh,
this is going to be a rough one.
I hate my brain so much for thinking of these things and just making me like, oh shit.
We've had some rough losses over the years. It was hard to part with, you know. It was hard to part with MMO Junkie. It was hard to part with Banana Fish, although, you know, we were pretty battered by that one. I hated leaving Neverland. I hated leaving Saras and Mai. I took that one really hard. This one could be the worst one yet.
Well, it's like I've always said, though, the best kind of closure to a story should be one where the audience does want more. But not to the point where they're like, because what we got was, like, hollow or absent, but rather because what we got was so good.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's the point when it's always a good time to end off, rather than continuing on into perpetuity and just diluting your own premise. So, anyway, we're not there yet. We're not there yet.
No, we're still in the thick of it. So we learn about Domeki's sound hunt. And Asakasa kind of invites herself along, and Mizusaki. They... And Kanamori, too, right? She comes along, but she's sort of the objector. She's like, hey, why are we doing this? Do the fucking storyboards. We talked about them. Asakusa convinces her, saying like, "Look, I'm trying to get ideas too. This is not just about skipping out on work. Bear with me. Let's all do this." And I didn't mention the Akira bike slide that happens in this scene, which rules. The oft referenced, often imitated but never duplicated, Akira bike slide, a piece of genius.
I mean, just to give you guys some idea, I retweeted this, and at some point I will actually retweet this on my Deshou account. There is a compilation of all the references that have been made to the Akira bike slide, and just off the top of my head, from what I've seen, you've got Batman the Animated Series, you've got The Simpsons, you've got Pokemon, you have Monogatari. It's one of the Monogataris anyway. I don't know exactly which one because I haven't seen it, but I know that much at least. Adventure Time has done it. Star Wars, Clone Wars has done it. Like, it's iconic. I'm willing to bet.
Punchline. I remember Punchline did it in an interesting way. Is that referenced in your list? Did you say that?
I don't know what Punchline is.
Okay.
But I'm willing to bet you this, right? In the same way that you could never have watched Star Trek but have a reasonably good idea who Captain Kirk or Captain Picard are, I reckon if you've never watched Akira in full, and spoilers here, I actually haven't seen it.
Whoa!
I knew that would make
that definitely has to be amended at some point in the future.
You are a doctor. You are a doctor. Technically, you could call that and prescribe me a treatment.
It's so good. You have to see it. It's great.
But the point I'm making is that I reckon even if you haven't seen it, would still recognize that bike slide or the gun, because everyone knows the gun.
The gun? Oh,
from the
gun.
Cover.
Yes, of course. It took me a moment. Yeah, it is funny how like scenes like that kind of they get put into the water, so to speak. Like
it escapes like the how shall I put this, the confines of anime as a culture in itself, and becomes more part of wider pop culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like it's the point where it's recognizable to people who aren't even necessarily anime fans, or maybe who've only ever glanced it.
I remember that scene, Yuki.
Thank you, Navy. Navy's just clarified the Akira by Nisei Monogatari.
Got it. I have seen it, and I'd forgotten that happened in Nisei. It's been a number of years since I've seen it, but maybe time to revisit Nisei Monogatari.
Indeed, well, I'd rather for me to visit it. Period.
Yes. Well. That one would be an interesting one for you. That one's pretty spicy, and that's when I first discovered Nick Creamer on Reddit, Bobda, writing essays about Nisei Monogatari and why it's like not. What's the right way to phrase that? That the stuff that a lot of people think is problematic is not that problematic in terms of being exploitative and what have you. It just seems too weird. It's pretty weird, to be fair, Cesar, but like, it's also, gosh, it's tough to recommend in some ways because it definitely has some sensibilities about it that are contrary to a lot of what people think is like tasteful and acceptable, and like. So it pushes people's buttons in the fan service thing and the minor thing and the familial thing, but in my opinion, it also features some magnificent character writing, some truly incredible background art and animation. It's cinematically just super impressive.
It's like a lucid dream.
Mm-hmm.
I've only mainly seen introduction story, which I've also actually read in novel form, I believe. But I've not otherwise watched any of the material after that point, even though I do have it on DVD and probably should get around to that. But yeah, I definitely recommend at least the first one, Shenjigahara's story in itself alone. The rest of it, I say, can't comment. I know of some issues with some stuff. I mean, I read the snail story, and even then I was believing things like, okay. But yeah, something I will definitely revisit at some point. Anyway.
Yeah. That one is one that I can't I know that there's value to reading the books because they were books first, but I just love the way Shaft have made that, like, have realized those stories visually to where I can't really imagine getting the same thing out of it. It's sort of a real holistic audiovisual experience to me. And yeah, it's quite a thing. It's quite a thing. It's a thing that I don't begrudge people for having issues with, though, I will say. But it is a remarkable production. But anyway, God damn it, we got really sidetracked onto Monogatari. But we're talking about the bike slide and scenario hunting. And we get our second montage here, the much shorter montage of seeing the crew hunting for sounds in the woods, listening, setting up their equipment.
Raccoons have spotted their, spirit mother in Asakusa. They're in the like the mid right of the frame, just watching and waiting. Like, hello, mom. It's been a while.
Yes, straight up, so good raccoon stuff. And then they get to their destination, which is the other side of the lake, underneath the clock tower. And they have some more really cool moments of Asakusa gets inspired by the clock tower, inspired by the setting, starts coming up when riffing with on these other ideas. Kanamori again gets her in a headlock and is like, look, would you please finish the project you're working on before you start new projects? Oh yeah, the biking scene, like them riding through the woods, like actually biking up the cliff, was super good. That was really good.
Wave, if you've seen Ride Your Wave, you know that Science Saru, they've got the art of animating biking down to a T.
I have only seen Yaomushi Pedal in terms of like the biking stuff, and I don't know if I can't remember it well enough to remember if it's as good as this, but goddamn, this was a really smooth bike ride. It really looked great, and there's some scenes in the woods and in the bike ride where like the characters kind of lose their outlines, so everything looks like softer and a little bit like everything like sort of bleeds into each other. That's not really it, but there's a borderlessness to the characters that has them
gives you a sense of motion.
Yeah, and like they just kind of feel more a part of the environment rather than set apart from it without those outlines. Yukinon is right to point out the Yojimbo reference at the top of the clock tower. That was fun.
Yojimbo. I'm just gonna nerd out a little bit here about Yojimbo. I mean, it's a Kurosawa film, so that's already your endorsement. But it is if you didn't know, it is the blueprint for Fistful of Dollars. It is basically the same story, just with possibly the world's first instance of the find and replace being employed, in this case for Ronin, or Samurai, for Cowboy. And it's great. I would definitely recommend you check out Yojimbo if you've got any interest in seeing where Fistful of Dollars as a story came from, or even just Kurosawa's film work in general, because it's just fantastic. And the fact they've referenced here, I'm just like, yes, please carry on. Don't mind me. You keep referencing all these great things. Don't let me stop you.
So I didn't know it was a reference to Yojimbo because I haven't seen that film. I haven't seen a lot of Kurosawa movies. I think the only one I might have seen, and I don't even know if I've seen all of it, is Seven Samurai. There's I know it's like a huge like hole in my media viewing.
I haven't seen that, to be fair.
That needs to be reflected. Have you seen The Magnificent Seven?
No.
Oh, okay. So it's like a Western version of that. They're both great. But what was I going to say? Shoot. Someone said something in the chat. Yaopeda. Yojimbo. When you say that, I think of Kurosawa second, and I think of Usagi Yojimbo first. Are you familiar with Usagi Yojimbo? Google Usagi Yojimbo. It's a cool comic book about a rabbit who is a Yojimbo, by Stan Sakai. It's
as
neat.
You do.
It's really neat. It's a cool I really love anthropomorphized animals in stories. So like anytime I see, you know, a movie, a book, a comic book that's, you know, about people animals, you know, from Beastars to Watership Down to YouTube, it's immediately grabbed my interest. For some reason, I just love that as a storytelling device. Okay. So, Asakusa figures out how she's going to integrate all of her kind of rough ideas that she's had with the big story, with the one that they're working on now. We have Domeki recording the bell sound. That scene was pretty awesome. Like, hold your breath, guys. Bong, boom. Like, that was so cool. I really liked that a lot. And here's the thing that I noticed. Oh, is there something that you can see behind Kanamori's backpack? I apologize. I can fix that. That is... There we go. It should be gone now.
I'm really just a ghost.
No, yeah.
About time I just confessed to you all, I am actually a spirit. You're all characters in our remake of The Sixth Sense. You can see dead people, motherfuckers.
Well, it was Alex's chat window, so...
Oh, he's the ghost, isn't
his voice window, but it was you because that surface area is now occupied by your window. So it was just, I thought I had it covered, but apparently sticking it behind the fucking background was not enough. I actually had to click the eyeball and get it to go away. Yes, ghostly Shadon is now gone. Anyway. Did you notice this, Shadon? Tell me if you think this is completely insignificant, because it might be. When
I'll start doing the ghost noises more often if you all enjoy it.
Emily, God,
that was terrible. I apologize.
That was pretty rough. That one, that's a ghost in training still. They haven't done their A levels.
That's a Casper right there.
Mm-hmm, definitely. So, yeah, when the group is very silent, recording the sound of the bell, they're together. And then they let their breath go, and they move away from each other. Everyone goes to the right, except Kanamori. She goes to the left.
She's completely statuesque.
No, she goes to the left. She goes a different way.
She doesn't even allow a breath from my memory either.
Yeah. But, well, the point... The question is, like, do you think the group splitting like that with everyone going one way and Kanamori going another, does that even matter?
Well, I think that's pretty on point for the entire arc of the episode for the most part, which is, you know, Kanamori's got one idea and Asuka's in particular's got another.
Mm-hmm. But, like, everyone went with Asakusa, right? Mizu, Domeki. Well, maybe they're like all the free spirits.
Yeah, that's it. I would agree.
Okay. I don't think it means that there's any like seismic split happening at the fabric of like the group or anything like that. I just thought this is interesting. So let's see. I have down in my notes Kanamori protecting Asakusa and Mizuzaki from scary real shit in the world because the adults have an adult conversation. You know, the secretary comes by where the girls are at they're at the lake,
Riverside,
skipping stones, Riverside, recording more sounds, and the student council secretary shows up, and mommy and the other grown-up have adult talk, and the little girls get to play still. She's like shielding them from, I feel like, all the like scary potential stuff that gets brought up. Mm-hmm.
That's what she is. She's a bridge between the harsh reality of the outside and what they're ultimately wanting to do. Trying to, you know, meet in the middle a little bit. Although, really, I think Kanamori should just literally, you know, say to the school, you ain't the boss of me. Or them. Mm-hmm. Kindly fuck off in that direction if you'd like. Or you can choose. I'll let you decide.
And there's like a really like, so the scene at the end when Asakusa sort of brings the secretary in to the world by showing her the machine that they've like, look what we built. This is for layering sounds, like you would layer pictures to create an environment, to create an aesthetic. The chimes, they're layered on each other, and on the sound of the clicking. And, you know, the secretary's still kind of off on her own, but she is also part of the greatest world vision that comes up. And I feel like this is a cool sort of way of saying, like, you know, maybe she's on their side a little bit, or maybe she's coming around, or maybe in addition to, like, so there's one way you could get through to somebody. You could argue with them, right? You could Kanamori and her go back and forth. They have been going back and forth, arguing. Or you could show them, like, the power of an idea. You could expose them to some kind of, like, media, culture, book, song, video. And it's like, that is a way that you could also bring someone into your cause, onto your side. Like, you could connect with them rather than just directly trying to talk to them. Like, what you had to say is like embodied in like this piece of media or something.
You're right, because again, nice thing about structure of the episode here is we kind of open, at least before the OP comes in, which to me is like the start of the episode. This is something I discussed in our Jewel of Richard podcast about how it's important what you put before an OP, it's important what you put after, and it's also very important where you put it in the actual length of the episode and the runtime. So just before the OP, we have the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Kanamori's way, or her attempt, to try and convince the school and the council, hey, this is why we're doing this. Get out of our way. Let us do our thing. And that's certainly one way of going about things, don't get me wrong. And I think that, you know, you wouldn't want to you want to use all the tools available at your disposal to convince someone. But I think what Kanamori has not realized, not because of any problem with her, it just is how it is, you know. We all don't necessarily see things the same way as everyone else. But one thing I don't think she's realized is that, as you've rightly pointed out, the episode then ends, with bookending things that you see, with Asakusa completely inadvertently, by the way. She's not doing it directly, but I think more it's just her palpable enthusiasm has become infectious. Indeed, I should note the secretary is a part of the Greatest World a little bit earlier, a couple of minutes earlier as well. They're stood in the group with them when they're talking about the construction of the clock tower. But yeah, it ends with her being brought into the Greatest World as well. And that's when she says, hey, they're in their own little world as well. And that's when there's that little, like, kernel of understanding that's starting to sprout there. And different method of going about it to try and convince them and get them onto their side. But both of them are still valuable, but it's interesting to see how the show is making a point that it's not simply just arguing about the economics or the efficiencies or the means by which you're doing it, or even just the straight up, I don't know, the ethics of it. Like, hey, let them do what they want to do. But it's also about trying to impart the creative value of something as well that's equally important. Like, Kanamori's kind of only been going around the core idea, if you will, in trying to express it. Because that's what she knows. That's her language. That's the way she speaks. That's what she talks in. But the show, again, will point out through Asakusa that, hey, we need to bring all of this together to convince people that, hey, we should be allowed the latitude to do what we want.
I'd like to point out that you left out, like, one of the key scenes at the end.
Oh?
It does not end directly on that. It ends with Kanamori putting Asakusa in the Cobra Twist. It needs to be pointed out. This is one of the most famous finishing holds in Japanese wrestling. It was the finishing move of Antonio Inoki, who was like a huge, and still is really a huge presence in some ways. Like, historically, his shadow is long cast over New Japan Pro Wrestling. He was he ran it for a while. He was champ for a while. Not involved currently, and not the greatest relationship with the company at this moment. but still a much beloved and historical and important figure to Japanese wrestling. And yeah, Cobra Twist, baby. Like it.
I'm surprised she'd literally twist Asuka's head off like a bottle. But that'd have been a great, like that'd have been a greatest world visual, by the way. I know what's in here is really valuable, but you know you need to focus. And just pops it back on.
So Shadon advocating for the decapitation of Asakusa here, beheadings.
The Looney Tunes style comedic decapitation. I mean, what about if we got a Tom and Jerry moment where one of them gets flattened into a pancake and has to walk?
I could see it. I definitely, I could see that. Yes.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure. Well, that's the episode. And before we get into our discussion, I think we're going to take a very short break. So we'll be right back, folks.
Do not adjust your internet browsers.
Okay, we're back. Now.
Thank you very much for your patience there, folks.
Yep, thank you. Now we're better able to discuss. So
I'm better equipped, that's for sure.
Oh wow, you have a nice one there.
Yep.
Lucky.
Love and Hate, 7.2%. It's also incidentally the name of text of every review I've ever posted. You know,
is there a thin red line on there, or maybe I'm mixing my
truth in advertising. As long as you're not mixing your drinks.
Yes, I'm mixing up my cliches. Because there's a thin line between love and hate, but not a thin red line. I think the thin red line is something. Anyway, fucking who cares? I'm gonna throw the mic to you to talk and discuss things.
All right then. Let's get right into the big one. Let's talk about the meeting at the very beginning of the episode. So there's a couple of directional touches I firstly want to point out in terms of the way that this is staged and where characters sit that I think is really important. First off, I love how there's just a massive amount of distance between like the Eizouken and the actual teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that's a visual display of like how apart they are in terms of like actual viewpoints. But then look at the actual layout of the room and also who sat where. So we have the student council people closest to the Eizouken, and then we have their advisor in between the student council and the teachers. And I thought this was great for a couple of reasons. First off, he seems to be playing
games.
On mobile phone. I mean, what is he? I can just imagine, like, he's there, like, oh yes, well, I could be helping the Eizouken, but excuse me. Oh my god, I got Namaya!
Exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
finally, my Grand Blue Versus game is complete. Yes.
He's all like,
anyway.
it's a fucking free event, or it's the big event. They're like, I gotta be, it's your fault for scheduling this meeting during the time when this kicks off.
Exactly. But the jokes aside, I'd argue that if you're a club representative on a teacher's side, that is, you should be an advocate for them. But he's not doing that. Not only is he not doing that in terms of simply being distracted by diddling about on his fucking phone playing Snake or whatever, but also note where he's sat. He's furthest away from them, even though he should really be sat next to them. And he offers no comment whatsoever. So that's very telling in its own right.
What a jackass.
I know. But also as a foreshadowing to how the secretary is going on board with the Eizouken, she sat closest to them. So that's neat in itself. Like, dramatic staging, I like this stuff. Give me more of it, please. But then it goes beyond that. Let's start talking about what's actually said in this discussion. So, first off, I think I should note, I don't recall, having now watched the episode twice, that there's actually a single concrete reason that the teachers give for why they shouldn't do it. It's all about politics and image and like.
I guess it depends on how concrete you think that is. You know what I mean?
I think Kaminari was trying to pluck at the thread of, well, what's the actual reasoning here, rather than just speaking in broad strokes and platitudes.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy is actually looking through what I presume to be the school's rule book. Well, the rules themselves, like, what's the meaning behind them? Like, what's the consequence of the Eizouken selling their stuff for money at Comic A? I almost said Comic Care, but it is Comic Care. Fuck it, we'll call it Comic
sure,
Care.
yes.
Whatever. Like, what's the actual consequence?
Like the core of the
hard, grounded idea behind this.
The core of the argument seems to be like, the school is all about education and enrichment, and all those activities have to sort of have that aspect to them. And Kaminari's like, tell me why running a business is not that, and they can't.
Exactly. I mean, let me ask you folks in the audience here, and this also goes for you too, Doc. And if you're listening to VOD, you can answer this as well. Have you ever attended a Comic-Con style event?
I've never been to a convention, no.
Okay, I have. I've been to several. And I'll tell you this, right? Comic-Con, as a general term here, not in just a specific event, is a big deal for creators to go sell their wares, like particularly if you're in India. I actually know the gentleman who did our very Cheryl doing the Pulp Fiction pose, Triple B, shouts to you, man, if you're listening. He actually, I've spoken to him at these events where he sets up stalls and such. So he'll be selling pictures, doing commissions and stuff like that. So why am I bringing this up? Because I would argue that if you are wanting to become an indie creator of anything these days and you want to sell your merch, you need to find a place to do that. And what better experience could you have than doing that while you still have the relative safety net of doing it inside a school environment with a school to back you up? This to me seems like a golden opportunity that the teachers should be allowing them to do, to have them just cut loose a little bit, go and do their thing at Comet A and learn from it, and then even keep the money for themselves. But they're not doing it. They're only talking in abstract terms of image for the school and all that. Like, it's like there's any actual grounded basis for this. And I find this really compelling from Eizouken's part as a work, that it's willing to take this stance. It seems very punk almost, would you say? In this kind of way of describing it. Now, Sophie's actually brought up something that I hadn't considered, which was maybe it's about child labor. Because in theory, if you were on the outside looking in, you're allowing them to go and make money and then, like, et cetera, et cetera. It's going back. And I can see it being read that way.
Yeah, when Cesar says, like, that if the Eizouken make money, do they not then owe percentages to other clubs for their labor? And I don't really know how, like, if the Eizouken is already paying them or how that's working.
Well, in that case, then that in turn could be part of the education experience. How do the profits to the creators? I mean, it's not like that's a really contentious issue in the anime industry. All right, it is. Oops. But for me, like, I really, really appreciate how Eizouken is kind of critical of the established order here. It's like, hey, let's rethink things here a little bit. Like, you know, we why not? Why can they not do this? What's the actual problem? And they never give an answer for that. And even though, as we've speculated on ideas here in the material itself, I think it's going to be up to each of us to decide if the fact that, for example, Eizouken doesn't bring up things like child labor, etc., is that a fault of the show, or is that deliberate omission because the characters themselves don't, like, as in the teachers, don't know that? I mean, he's clearly looking at the rule book to try and figure some idea, you know, of why they're doing this. But I find it really refreshing, and I say appeals to my inner punk here, that it's willing to question the established order of things in such a way and say, hey, maybe the education system is given isn't the best for actually allowing these kids to fully explore their craft, and even just beyond the craft, the actual business of it.
So I think it doesn't bring up the child labor laws because I think it's not germane to the show. Like I was sort of saying earlier, but in a different way, it's not really about like kids or like these three kids. It's, you know, it's like the celebration of anime and the industry and people in it and how it gets made, and like it's more about that. I think the angle that is most productive, in my opinion, to look at this whole thing from is how is it all kind of analogous to the current anime industry and the standards and practices therein. Now, having said that, I do think that there are really interesting things, like you were saying, that you could talk about regarding like schools and all this stuff, because I mean, this whole meeting just infuriated me. Like, it was such like it was really just administrators waving their hands and saying, we don't know, but we think that other people may have a problem with this, so we're not going to let you do it.
But the Chamber of Commerce has actually said it's okay, like a different government agency for approval, and they've got it.
Well, I think it's crazy, more, I think it's more like unknown unknowns.
That's not me saying that's a contradiction or that's a plot or anything. I'm saying that that's a legitimate point in the story.
It is.
And it just goes to show they're just spinning a yarn here. There's, you know, pulling red tape out of nowhere.
Well, then they give this argument that I feel like is where the analog to adults working in anime or other industries really comes in, when basically what they say, like, they give something akin to, we'll pay you an exposure. God. When they're basically like,
you know, Kaminari would strangle the person people who do that.
Yes,
you know?
Yes, she would. Because, so if that seems like a stretch, basically what I'm saying is, like, when the older lady of the two on the school board or whatever, I'm assuming she's the principal. She seems like the sort of senior administration figure.
She seems old.
Right. She's basically saying, like, why do you need to make money? The effort of doing this should be its own reward. You know, you have all these, it's like team building exercise. It's seeing a project through to completion. Like, all these things are, you can't put a price on that.
You know what my blunt answer would that be? In the real world, you know, effort being its own reward won't put food on my fucking table. How about that?
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, I'm saying that from my perspective, but like I said, I've spoken to people like who make do paycheck to paycheck, and I say paycheck in the loosest sense here.
Yeah.
From what they're making from, you know, commissions and such, and selling at these events, which are a big deal for them revenue-wise. So it's crazy. I mean, I had a point about this, but I'll come back to it in a second anyway. Back to you, Doc. I'll
I just think, like, the takeaway from this is, like, if you're doing the equivalent amount of labor that professionals do, and you're putting together a product, and you can put that product out there and it can sell and everything like that, like, I don't know, I think, like, you ought to be paid for it regardless of the I think just because they have the advantage of doing this at school doesn't offset the fact that they deserve to be paid for their work. basically, is
absolutely.
what my
Well,
but the school and the student council in particular also don't believe that. They think like being part of the school and being in that ecosystem and like is like a platform to work. It gives you all this time, and basically the rewards that you get for that are like in doing the project yourself and seeing it through, and all those things are valuable. But it's sort of like it strikes me as really similar to the argument that happens a lot when talking about university sport here in America, because I don't know if you know this, Shadon, but like, well, so are you familiar with American football, right? Like, not the rules or whatever, but like, what happened. It's a very violent sport.
Oh yeah, I know that the rates for like brain injury and such, and like damaged to brain tissue is higher.
Yes.
In athletes from that sport. So yeah, no surprises there.
So a very, very lucrative and popular sport is university level football. So you have these kids that are going to college, playing football, putting their lives and bodies and futures on the line for these universities, so that the universities can make millions and millions and millions of dollars, so that not just like the presidents or the athletic directors, but even the coaches, the coaches of these college kids make millions and millions of dollars. Like, it's not an exaggeration. And the student athletes get paid $0. And it is upon their backs that this huge financial sort of gain for the university is built. And yet people say, well, they get to go to college for free. They get the college experience. They get a college degree. They get college life.
A college degree in what? Fucking brain damage.
Well, it could be in whatever they want, but I take your point. Yeah.
They get paid.
They do. They get paid in exposure to head trauma.
It's true.
And it's true. It's like it strikes me as a very similar argument, like, because you have these people saying like, well, they're getting like these great advantages that other people don't get. They're getting to go to school. They're getting these innate inherent goods that are supposed to be like equivalent to making money or whatever, but like they're not. And it's the same kind of deal that the school is spitting to these kids. Like, oh, they're getting this school time to work. They're getting this environment. They're getting a chance to bond with each other. They're getting all this shit. But it just rings hollow to me, because they are burning the candle that is their professional lives still. And so I think that they ought to be paid.
Well, if I may expand on that as well, I'm not saying that you necessarily entirely need to agree with the point I'm about to make, Doc, but I imagine you will think that there's a grain of truth in it. Do you think a substantial amount of school, particularly high school and elementary, that the only thing it ever really teaches you is how to take tests?
Unfortunately, yes.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's a shame. Like, I have very different ideas of what university should be than is happening right now, and it's pretty infuriating. And it goes back to, not to totally steal your point, but like you brought this up earlier, and Kaminari says herself, when you were talking about their sponsor, their faculty sponsor, Shadon, when Kaminari says, like, what is the point of an education system that won't stand up for its students?
Exactly.
Exactly. I feel like so often they're like concerned with who is on the board and who is giving them money, rather than the kid. And it's, it's the way of the world or whatever, but it sucks.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing, right? Like, I think that maybe Eizouken's criticism is even more being specifically about them as a club, but rather that what education systems are not doing. And I must stress, by the way, that when I speak about education systems, I only know of my own. In the UK when I was growing up, and things are fundamentally different at my age now than they were back then, not least of which because of the march of IT and the changing world of work. And I feel confident I can speak on your behalf, and that's probably similar for you as well, in that it's a lot different than when you were in high school. And that's even before we consider that we're in different countries than Japan. So take everything I'm saying here with a pinch of salt about what I'm ultimately saying about Japan's educational system as Eizouken sees it. But to me, it feels like it's a more fundamental critique that the education system simply does not properly prepare you for what awaits. It does not, teach you anything useful. Or at least, it teach you useful things, but will not teach you pragmatic or practical in nature. I mean, I'd argue the greatest teacher that Asukusa and Mizuzaki have had so far, it's not been the club advisor who's been barely fucking present in this entire show. It's been Kanamori, one of their peers.
Yep.
So
this is so true, especially for like if you want to do something like that. You know what I mean? If you don't want to, like, I feel like that there's like a limited number of jobs that you get really well prepared for, or not even jobs, but like skills. Because I don't think school should just be a job preparation factory. I am a very big proponent of the liberal arts, in fact, and the humanities as making like good informed citizens and good thinkers. but yeah, no, what you're saying, like they're not gonna. They are not going to learn too much that has a sort of a direct correlation to what they want to do in their school.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'll tell you for free now, like in my time in high school, do you know what I was not taught? I was offered the chance to learn really at any point how to run my own business. That sure as shit didn't happen.
No.
I mean, there's so much to me that feels absent from the Eizouken's now point out to me, it feels absent from education. Like growing up, like in terms of, preparing you more adequately for the world of work or the world of, finding yourself. I don't know.
Yeah.
You get the point. But like the fact that Kanamori is the one who has taught us, the audience, and in turn, the rest of the characters the most about all of this is just insane. Again, I love this criticism. It feels very nature. It feels very much, anti-authoritarian, anti-status quo. And I think that again ties in. Yeah, I think that ties into everything else that we've said about the idea of Eizouken in the show, that is the film club, being an indie project.
Yeah.
Because also being representative of the troubles that they of the troubles that people face when they're trying to create. Well, you're right, Phyllis. I didn't do business studies, so I can't really comment on that. I weren't sure if business studies would be more. Internal business politics for existing companies versus self-employment. So yeah, but I don't think that was even offered as a general level. I think that was more a specialized thing.
Yeah, that's the thing is like you could take a business class or whatever. But in a lot of
Yukinon's got the best educational system there, like how to do basic shit.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I wish I had that.
Adulting, right? How to be an adult.
Adulting.
Should be a course. But like if you wanted to, like a lot of high schools don't do financial literacy, and a lot of universities, like if you take like intro to business, like that stuff, the professor might see that as a waste of time because you want to learn about like abstract concepts and like supply and demand and all that shit. But like, but even then, if you wanted to do this business course, like in a lot of universities, like it's hard to get into sometimes courses like that if you're not already a major. Exactly. You don't want to do business, but you just want to learn basic shit, like you were saying. Like it's it can be tough, and there should be probably more real worldy shit. I think that's what home economics used to be, but like
I wish I paid more attention now. I'm living the shit out of cooking these.
I think it's sort of a relic now, an anachronism in most high schools, because like
really shouldn't be.
It was sort of seen as like I guess maybe sort of sexist or something. I don't really, but like it's just teaching how to cook, like that doesn't matter. But like there was a lot more to it than that a lot of the time, I believe. But I don't think, I mean, I could be wrong about this, but I don't think it's in many, if not most, high schools anymore.
So yeah, that's really all I have to say about that, though. Good on the show for exposing this for what I think it actually is. That, hey, there is value in, traditional education structures and all that, but there's so much more that people should be taught, or even more than that, if they're willing to seek out and learn it on their own, in their own way, maybe let them. And let them keep the rewards for doing so. And on top of that, if they are going to go into such a, an adult world as like, start running their own business like this, maybe offer them What the hell happened there?
So I'm fucking around with this. I have a wall charger, and then I have this USB drive plugged into it.
Are you
And so I'm
charging
just
your torrents?
like diddling around with it.
Are you charging your torrents, making sure they're fully powered up?
Yes, that's 100%.
Oh my god!
Powering the uTorrent.
Yeah. But the point I was making as well, like, is that if they are gonna like try and do this kind of adult thing, going into this business thing, you know, selling stuff on their own, what they should do, if you're going to challenge them on that, is offer them an adult reason for it. Don't give them this wishy-washy, you know, like vague nonsense. Break it down to the core concepts of it, you know. Like, what if you have a legitimate reason for it? Put it out there for them to judge. Don't just go, well, the image of the school. No, fuck off. Image of the school, my ass.
Oh, Emily, we can't go down this road. I have a lot to say. Like, my friends and I we have solidarity with everybody that, you know, got degrees in the humanities, and, you know, life. It turned out that, like, fucking the universities just were not doing their job with either, like, preparing you or internships or hooking you up with opportunities, you know, post-grad. Probably because the job markets have been, for the last decade or so in those fields, in academia, drying up. But, like, those like, I feel like those degrees should qualify you for more, but unfortunately they don't. Anyway, fucking fuck. We should definitely move swiftly on from the university discussion, because, again, I could talk about it for a long time. What's your next point, buddy?
I have a point about the end of the episode, but do you have one to throw out there from the top?
Oh, I think we should probably bring up what David was saying in chat, Navy Cherub, about Kanamori pointing out that she's not driven by money, she's driven by efficiency, and money is just sort of like the barometer for efficiency. Like, you are rewarded for your productive activities with this, so it's just this sort of measuring stick of quality productions. And, like, so, like, this is really interesting, but, like, I think, how do you take this? Like, did this sort of hold water for you, or did it, like, is it just a way to rationalize you know, the way that you enjoy money? Because, like, I don't know, I feel like probably there are some billionaires out there who think this way too, that are not like, I just love the color of money and the way it feels in my hands. You know, they're more like, oh, it's just
Kanamori never becomes a billionaire.
I know. But they sort of see it as, like, you know, oh, it's just an indicator of value, my value, or something like that.
Well, there's a couple of different ways to look at it. The first one is you could take it as just Kanamori telling the truth, sort of, but rather spinning it to serve her ends. Because maybe she is still into money, but ultimately, you know, what she's saying isn't wrong either. You know, can be both. Doesn't mean that the other one is not necessarily untrue, though. The other one is, and I think this is more appropriate because it ties in with what happens later in the episode, is that I think, as Asuku's friend, I think she does want to see Asuku succeed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I think that for Asuku's, like, I don't think she's ever once really hard about the money side of it or wanting to be rewarded for it, with the exception of the, like, 11 million yen thing. But I think that was just an eye-opener and a, holy shit, I could actually have all that money in my hand. So I think that rather her mention of efficiency is because she wants to see her friends succeed, and that's the means to doing so, as a way of nurturing them. So it depends on how you want to view it. I don't think she's strictly being it for them and just be using that as an excuse to get around the accusations that are being leveled at the Eizouken.
Yeah, I mean, it does. Yes, it does. There is a distinction between, because I do think I think the key thing is that she just loves so where Asakusa and Mizusaki love the creative part of the creative process, Kanamori loves the process part of the creative process. I think she has a real enjoyment for and a real knack for project management. And for her, like, doing it in class and getting graded on it and getting an A would feel like would be a simulation. Like, that's not that doesn't feel real to her. She wants to manage projects without that safety net, like in the real world, and she believes that she's good enough to where they will be rewarded for it in like the way that those projects are really truly rewarded. And yeah, I don't think thinking it through, I don't think it's just a sort of end around and money is the end goal. I do think it is. I believe her, definitely. Like, and I see this argument, I see this distinction where she just loves management, and her performance review will be, the box office numbers, the money. That's how
receipts,
that's how she'll feel like she's done a good job or not, and which is this totally different way of measuring the value of the work, because Mizu strikes me as someone who doesn't really give a shit, and privilege cough.
I was gonna say, well, she's literally not lacking for money.
I know, but she's just like, the artistic integrity, like this animation is valuable just because it's awesome. And Kanamori would probably say it's valuable, yes, but like for different reasons, or at least for additional reasons. Like, it is awesome, but it's also awesome in a way that will market test very well and will get people to pay money for it. Like, if people think it's valuable, they'll put money down, I guess, is what she is thinking about.
It's the most easily quantifiable metric, I would argue. At least for this kind of thing. If they were actually putting this, say, on YouTube, you then have view counts as a possibility as well. I think that for Kanamori, what she's after is quantifiable data on how they're doing, rather than what Asuku's and Miyazaki are, which is more qualitative in nature, which is we're about, not the numbers so much as we're about the artistic merit, which is something that you can't really, despite what Metacritic would tell you, measure numerically.
Yeah. And Emily brings up a good point too, like, and you're right, David. It's not because she wants to hoard the money.
You know that Kanamori wants a Scrooge McDuck money bin.
No way.
She just dive into.
Yeah. I think a good thing to keep in mind and always remember is, like, despite like the big proclamations that she makes about her value systems or whatever, that you have this, to one side you have, I value money because it is a metric by which the quality of our production and my management can be ascertained. That's to one side. But also, I think equally important and unspoken part of it, and certainly unspoken in the context of these meetings, because it just doesn't feel germane to the meetings, doesn't feel appropriate. But she wants to help her friends succeed. That's totally right. Like, that's like a big motivation in this, and that's what keeps it from feeling grim, because it's not.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Like Paranoia Raid. Well, I said where we can make that anime where the guy gets through all of his animation just by drawing his way through it.
Right. Yeah, or like she's not like it could feel pretty soulless if it was like just someone else who didn't care about them, who was like like work, labor, spit out these drawings. Like, the fact that she really like gives a shit about them, loves them, and that does not take a back seat, in my opinion, to the her financial goals or other kind of goals for the club, is what helps keep the show feeling super warm and human.
Indeed. I just want to shout 0229 OWR, which to me sounds like off-brand paint. I don't know, like, I'm gonna use that to start my house. You're right, and that's the core thing I was getting at, which is that it is like, when they're protesting why they do it, is because that's the way things are.
Yes, and the non-answer. Not the reason. Yeah.
And I've never been one for status quo. Like, people say in my work, why Why? Doesn't make it sacred. Doesn't make it sacrosanct. You know, if it's shit and it doesn't work, tear it down, rebuild it, do it new. You know, simple as that. All right. I want to give you all a quick reminder because we haven't had. Polls are up. All 5 of them are up for your perusal. Please go to @Warui Deshou on Twitter. I will actually put the links to the very first one in the YouTube chat now.
If it will let you, since you're not me, it might say, "You have done a bad thing by posting a link."
Well, that's what YouTube should do more often, especially for certain people who put content on there. Right, there we go.
Just write it down on a piece of paper and hold it up to the camera.
Do you want me to put it into a pen drive for you? You seem to be very fond of them right now.
Yep. It's a hammer. It's like Thor's hammer, but with a USB stick.
I was going to say your dongle looks a bit unhealthy there, Doc.
And now it's a spiked hammer.
My god.
Spike them.
Okay, so moving away from Doc playing with his dongle there.
Oh Jesus.
I'm sorry, but come on, don't play with your dongle live on stream and expect me not to comment back. And I love, by the way, this is going to be great for the people who listen to this in podcast format because you ain't seeing shit.
No,
enjoy that
that's great radio.
Anyway, so my next talking point. This is actually a criticism.
Gasp.
Potentially, I know. I'm just watching as everyone just files up, stands up.
I'm allergic to those.
Digital theatre that is our podcast say. So let's talk about the way the episode plays out, which basically repeats a single beat, which is something like this, where Asakusa goes into Greatest World, and Kanamori pulls her out. Repeat. Now, I'm going to ask this question to you, Doc, and to you in the audience. Is it a problem that nothing seems to ultimately come of that it's played more for comedy rather than having a final resolution where Asakusa realizes, oh god, Kanamori is right? Because from my perspective, Kanamori is entirely correct. She doesn't want to stifle Asakusa's creativity, but, not clamping down a little bit on it means nothing gets done. So is it a problem for the episode in terms of it feeling like it's not really going anywhere, that keeps happening, and that's good in its own right, it's enjoyable to watch, don't get me wrong, but there is no real payoff for it in that it doesn't seem like Asakusa has learned from it, like Cesar says, for example.
I thought at the end she said that she got it.
I don't know. I think if that were the case, I would have preferred the episode have a concrete way of displaying that. And indeed, Cesar is just literally as I said that.
At 21:28, she's in the Greatest World and she says, "I've got it."
What's that though? I think she's probably going to say that
the equipment is said to be able to transmit wishes and gratitude.
Yeah, there you go. That's not.
Oh yeah, so this is a different story. That's right.
Yes, I'm referring to Kanamori's point, which focus.
Mm-hmm. Did she not come up with any? Oh, I guess she didn't come up with any. I thought she came up with a synthesis, but I guess I'm mistaken. The last thing that they come
up with is that little spinny, rotating reed thing in the water.
Yeah. She made some progress, I guess, with the little spinny thing, but she still got to come up with villains. Because, Domeki is I won't be able to make much progress with the sounds if you don't come up with this. So, yeah, no, you're right. It's not resolved in this single episode, but that's okay. Maybe it will roll over and continue, you know what I mean?
You know what, I'm actually okay with that, and I'll tell you if that's the way it turns out, and I'll tell you why. Because we had a time pressure in the run-up to episode 4. That felt pretty clear from the way that the episodes were presented, particularly episode 3. There wasn't really a time pressure in the previous episode, but that was... the previous arc, I mean to say, when they were preparing the robot one. But the thing is, that's fine, because the conflicts that the show was focusing on then were more instead about working with other groups of people, and then also Miyazaki's own arc as well. So I'm all right with that.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean you can't reuse the idea of a time pressure, particularly in this big grand finale for the show, as in the anime we're watching. So it could very well be that in the next episode, that's when the time pressure creeps up. So we'll see. But I do feel that I would have liked maybe some kernel or germ of realization to have started sprouting Asakusa, tongue-tied on a name again. I'm so bad at it. On our little gremlin, to start germinating. So that way she realizes, look, I do want to create all these things, and maybe I will do eventually first. And I feel like the episode didn't lay enough groundwork in terms of her progressing towards that. Now, again, we'll see what happens. This is the thing that we always run into when we do this format of podcast, which is we comment week on week, we come back next week, and it turns out usually that I'm completely talking out my ass. More so than usual. So we'll see. But it did feel odd to me that while the episode ended on a nice note, as I say, about the book ending of the secretary being drawn into, you know, the idea of the greatest world and the fact that she was seeing it in a different light.
Mm-hmm.
I would have also preferred there to be more concrete progress for Asuka rather than the piece beat of crazy idea. No, I'll shake you by your neck if I have to, you little gremlin.
It didn't. I guess it didn't bother me. I mean, I'm not. After rewatching the end, I mean, I can't like disagree with the facts of it, but I guess, I'm okay with certain issues not being resolved within the episode that they are brought up in. I'm good with it. I think next episode, hopefully, you know, we'll see. There will be like connective tissue between the progress she's made and these moments, and it'll be good and worth it. And I really enjoyed the fact that she's having this writer's block. I thought it was like it was like a really good foundational thing for the episode.
I've had that many times, and it's still technically here, actually.
It's a permanent writer's block. This is the way I live my life.
It's a writer's damn more like.
I liked that, and as a reason to take the field trip, you know, to go on the sound hunt, I like the fact that they did this. They've done this before, where they go to location.
I must say, like, just again to also borrow from what Grizzly's saying here, while there are times in which you think to yourself when you're watching a show, oh my god, it's repeating the same points over again, and that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not always a problem. It depends on how it's utilized and what the ultimate point of it is trying to make. And yeah, they have been on excursions before. We had the underground one, for example, where they went to the sewer system. And now they have one again where they're going, you know, ostensibly for sound, but that doesn't mean they can't get something out of the locations. Indeed, Asakusa does that. But I think this is, again, to the show's credit that it's showing this, because it means you're not one and done. You don't take one trip out and you get some material. You keep going. You explore new locales, new places, get new and fresh ideas and inspiration from it. You don't simply have a one and done thing. You've got to be committed to your craft. And part of that is exploring and drawing inspiration from various places in the case of animation, rather than just, well, nothing really. I mean, I must say, you may or may not know, folks, that I previously, and may eventually get back to it, indeed the show is part of it, I used to write fiction. Now, none of it's successful. It's all terrible. Don't go looking for it. Point being, though, one of the things that I read as a writer that you have to do is you have to read a lot of material outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
In order to become a good writer. If you want to be a sci-fi writer, for example, it actually behooves you to read a lot of rom-coms, all sorts of stuff. And I think that kind of parallels the same idea here, where you need to go and actually look about, you know, different locations, get different inspiration, rather than just simply keeping to your comfort zone. So good on the show for doing that.
Yeah, we talked about this idea many times about like avoiding the kind of sort of inbred circle of referencing your own medium all the time. And sort of going out, having fresh new experiences, exposing yourself to different things. I think it was Chuck Jones, one of the famous. You brought up Tom and Jerry. Chuck Jones, a very famous.
You're right. Chuck Jones was one of them. You're right.
Super famous Western animator who, in a long form interview he was giving, you know, it's talking about like advice to aspiring animators, and he just said like, do everything, watch everything, read everything, don't limit yourself, you know, bring in all these different kind of influences, and they'll all inform you and your work in really interesting ways. And I love like that, like, you know, we have the like going to location in this episode, reinforcing the theme of like life experience feeding into art, feeding into the animation. Like the show has touched on this in a number of different ways.
You know, Caesar is just, my God. When you mentioned that, Caesar, about the idea of the enemy seeing who speaking, that's arguably foreshadowing the events surrounding the secretary.
You could very well be, right?
Doesn't say a damn thing, really, not to the group in general, but still is otherwise brought more and more on board with them as time goes on.
We'll make them all otaku, and by showing them anime, and we'll convert them all. But yeah, so fuck, what was I saying? That you have like the life informing art in a lot of different, Mizusaki with the motions and the movement class, and like doing the tea thing, and the girls going to locations, and sort of Asakusa's experiences with anime also, even from being a little child. And I think if you look at like the documentaries or behind the scenes features of a lot of anime, you will see them like going to locations. And sometimes I've wondered in the past, like before I watched the show, like, why do they do that? Like, why do they need to, like, can't they just read about it, or can't they just like look at pictures or whatever? But like, there really is something to be said for experiencing the totality of a different place. And that's why traveling is important, not just reading about
my God, like
places.
I'm not trying to turn this too extensively into my own travelogue, but there's a place in London where I've been to a fine game tour. The entire around it is just a series of bohemian like art studios and stuff like that. It's nuts. And I would never have seen that if I hadn't traveled. And granted, I'm not going to ever turn into an anime if I like, but I can imagine people being inspired by it. I mean, heck, it's an art studio. What do you expect? So yeah, I can definitely assess that firsthand.
I'm sure you were inspired by it in different ways. I mean,
I was inspired by it to win the tournament.
To whip some ass.
And then I didn't actually win. So, although to be fair, I did have an amazing out tournament when I location then challenged me to a money match later, and I beat it 10-3.
Good stuff.
Oh, revenge.
Good stuff. As you do.
It's like a fine wine.
Best served cold?
Well, it takes a little while to age, Technically be the blood of your enemies. Just saying. It was a good moment, that.
Yeah, but so I think that we've talked about, to finish my thought here, just like we talked about like animation sort of or even just art, right? Like being this vehicle to express things about reality that are not as noticeable, or like they can be outsized to kind of to highlight they can be embellished to really bring home certain features, certain messages, certain things that artists want to say about the world, about reality. But I think, and so we start to sort of are talking about it like, it's a greater reality, animation, or it's like the thing that is the important thing. Like reality is only necessary to inform art, but like it is necessary to inform art. Like going to these locations and going to different places, and like the fact that experience plays such a key part in creating art, I think it will behoove us to not like lose the fact, the life, the experience side of that equation. That that it's not just for art, but like there's all kinds of like great value in life and its experiences, and it's without it there wouldn't be art, right? I mean, so even if you love the art stuff and are thinking about it as primary, as the real reality, the better one than actual reality, like there's something to be said for actual reality and human experience, and like how unique and amazing it is for everyone, and how we can have like these incredible moments that inspire us to go and make this art that everyone looks at and is moved by.
Hell yeah. All right, well, I've said all I want to say about this particular episode. Do you have anything else you want to add, Doc?
I think I'm good. I think I'm good.
Think you're good? All right, lad.
Right, I think I'm good, man.
Well, in that case,
right,
then I'll take us back to the polls to see how we're
yes,
doing.
let's return to the polls, just like.
Yep. Just as a reminder, these will be up. I don't know where you were going with that, but I'll leave there. These will be up for next week. Do get in on them. So Doc, by the way, has no idea what these polls are, so I can't wait for his reaction. This is super good. All right. First question. Episode 10, poll number 1. Is the school right to demand the Eizouken not make any money from Comet A or elsewhere in general? 29% of you have actually said yes to this thus far, and I would be curious to hear your thoughts. Not that I disagree out of hand, but I would just be curious to hear the logic behind that. Because again, like I said, the problem with the answers given by the teachers is that they are vague, wishy-washy, principled status quo nonsense rather than concrete. This is the consequence of what will happen if you continue doing what you're doing. 71% of you said no. If you want my opinion, by the way, I'm of the opinion that they are not within their rights to stop the Eizouken from making money. They should be justly rewarded for their efforts. Even if it turns out that they don't end up making much money from it, at least something that they've learned from then. There's not only is there the money, but there's the experience of getting that money and what it takes involved, to get that. Next question. Poll number 2, which is best? And these 3 answers here: Kanamori, Mini Mori, or Kanamoni.
Oh my god.
We're having the Eizouken question here. 0% of you say Kanamori, 33% of you say Mini Mori, and 67% say Kanamoni.
Is this just recency bias? I feel like
it could be. Kanamoni is a great name.
I vote plain Kanamori. Just give me the vanilla original classic variety Kanamori.
Well, Kanamori is a saber, Mini Mori, Kanamori. They're the Fate Grand Order classes.
I don't need this vanilla cherry edition of what I like. Just give me the classic flavor, please.
Next up, you're gonna hate me for this. I'm going with it. Poll number 3: is there ever a bad time to reference the Akira bike slide? 33% of you say hell no.
No.
And 67% of you say only when in DMs.
Yeah, I guess that's bad. I guess that's bad. Sure.
I had to make that joke. Sure. I'm so sorry.
Sure.
All right. Episode 10, poll number 4. This one relates to... So it kind of doesn't have a resolved conflict between Kanamori and Asukusa, which goes something like this. Should the second half of the episode have ended on an actual conflict with a resolution between Kanamori and Asukusa, given the former was continually getting distracted? 33% you say yes, and 67% say no. And finally, a poll that I feel I should have a long time ago, but I'm doing it now while I have the reins. Poll number 5. Should Domeki be formally inducted into the Eizouken and therefore appear in the OP along with the trio? 86% of you say abso-bloody-lutely, and 14% of you, curiously, have said no.
I think they're trying to respect her wishes.
No, I want Domeki. I would, because it's like I've said, that would actually illustrate well how he can be to the benefit of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Mixing things up a little bit, and if Ace can just add that little nod to that. Plus, I like Domeki a lot as a character.
My appreciation for that character has grown exponentially every episode that she's and I really like her as a side character who just sort of shows up from time to time. The sort of Kramer to the Seinfeld and Elaine and George that are the other characters.
God. Sophie said Domeki's already in the OP. She had it. Well,
touche.
I am slain. I am slain. People can mess me all they want. It's all in good fun. But anyway, those are the polls. Do feel free to check them out. Retweet on it. All the answers, please. Looking forward to seeing what they come out next week. Right, Doc, over to you.
So it's time to rate the episode. It's time. How would you rate it, Shadinger?
Shadinger. Mm-hmm. Oh my god. All right. I really, really enjoyed this episode, and I know saying water is wet when it comes to Eizouken, but first off, loved all the references: the Akira bike slide, the Miyazaki, the Yojimbo, the lovely little bit with the list of the Science Saru staff members and all their like quirks, little details like that. I loved. I especially loved the episode's willingness to challenge established notions of what education should be. That I think is really, really key. There was some neat, unique music tracks in this episode as well, like particularly the opening and also the bike ride. Like, I love it when all the new music is like it's all really good. Again, I do have some iffiness about the way in which the conflict between Asakusa and Kanamori wasn't quite taken as seriously as I wish it had been, which is not to say it should have been grimmed down to the point where Kanamori leaves Asakusa in floods of tears or anything. No, I don't want that. Fuck that. No way. But I think there's a middle ground that could have been found somewhere. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention something that was pointed out in chat, which is that the editing scene where Duneki is going through the bell noises goes on for a solid minute. And I was like, what the hell? Is that intentional? I don't know. It felt a bit off. I was like, the point's been made.
It's not unintentional. I think it's like, so the question is like, is it an artistic choice or is it a sort of financial corner cutty choice?
I don't think either way, it just felt like it went on a bit too.
Well, sure. It was enough to be distracting, but
yeah, that was the thing. Like when I actually actively noticed it in that way, I was like, ugh.
It did not bother me, like, because I am an apologist of the show and will defend it no matter what. I was totally fine with it. Like, I think.
Wow, I didn't realize you were into becoming a cult.
I am. I'm in the tank.
And in all the cults that you could join, the Eizouken definitely least bad.
Eizoukenadi? That doesn't work very well. So someone else in chat was saying that they didn't think that the length of the scene, like given like what they were doing, that it was okay. It wasn't like just it wasn't just them standing there doing nothing. They were performing an activity that probably did take a little bit. I don't know, man. It was a thing. It wasn't perfect, but it didn't bother me.
Yeah, I did also. I must stress, like the earlier where Domeki's like taking literal slices of audio and substituting them in. I thought that was. So all the complaints I have are kind of minor, really. To be honest, they're not again like deal breakers as any of the others I've had with Eizouken have been. So in the end, I think ultimately I am going to give this episode 4.75 recreations of Miyazaki's beard out of 5.
Okay. I adored this episode. This episode, maybe more than any so far.
Wow, how many times have you said that now?
Well, it just keeps topping itself. Because, like, there's different... It's pushed me in different ways. Like, certain episodes have made me feel triumphant, cathartic. Certain episodes have made me feel warm toward the girls. This episode, like, made me sort of realize that this is such a tightly coherent show. The kind of big picture coherence that is being asked for from Asakusa is actually present in spades in this show.
Now that you mention it, this anime, probably more than any other I've seen thus far, has an extra layer of pressure on it to practice what it preaches, to be in line with the things it wants to say. And to its credit, it is.
It just feels like that everything that's happening reinforces everything else that is happening or that they want to say. Like, a lot of times in a show or something, it's like, okay, well, why did this event X happen? Well, reason A. But, like, in this show, it's like, what purpose did event Y serve? Well, it built up character A, it reinforced theme B, it added some world building C, and all of those things buttress each other. It's just like this amazing, like, basket weaving of, like, everything interconnecting and being able to support the episodes. And yeah, nothing has felt half-assed. Nothing has felt half-baked. All the ideas, all the motivations, every scene, like, has felt important is not the right word. I mean, it is important, but like important implies like this weighty gravity, but like the show is so effortless. The show is easy breezy, but it's able to pull it off and make it look that way because it's so considered. Like everything that the show does is so well considered and reinforces the things that they're trying to do all across the board. And so it fucking rocks, man. I'm giving it 5 power move leg crosses out of 5.
Nice. Well, if I ever get a long enough like sofa when recording, I will occasionally do the leg cross as a power move when I'm about to make an important point. That will happen, folks, I tell you. All right.
I'm being asked to make a robot cardboard cosplay to dress up as the robot.
I really want you to around with work. I've got the benefit of being at home. I can dress however the fuck I want.
Today was the day to do it because no one is at work. I'm like the only person here.
Damn it. Well, I mean, you've watched Eizouken. You clearly now must stealth and infiltration. I mean, if Mizuzaki can do it while wearing a robot outfit, why can't you?
I'm gonna do. Have you seen the guy who did a cosplay as a Gundam by like having a cardboard box around him that said the word Gundam written on it and in the Sharpie? I should just do that.
I don't even need to see it now. I can see it clearly.
Yep.
In my mind's eye.
I won't be able to see it, but I can feel it. Go. I'll feel it.
Love this show. Just saying. No hate. Hates a no.
55 Atomic Robot.
I mean, she's got the name for it, so there you
go. Yeah. Just put a box on your head. Yep.
Says that, you're right, but I don't think they do one in my...
That's going to be your part of it, is the manta ray suit.
They don't do manta ray suits in fat bastard size. It ain't happening.
Stop it. You stop it. Okay, well, I think we're done. I think that we are to the end of this one. And Shadon, this has been a lovely stream. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, no, I needed this. It's put a smile on my face.
Absolutely. Everyone in chat, like, the chat's been lively today. Chat's been,
you're all awesome.
Yeah, everyone has been rocking it. So thank you for showing up and for hanging out with us. Really good points. Like, really helped our discussion. Helped clarify things. Ask questions. Like, all that stuff has been super great. So thank you all very much. So I guess time for plugs. If you want to support the WD, then head on over to patreon.com/Warui Deshou. And we got 3 budget-friendly tiers, $2, $3, $5. For $5, you get everything. You get everything we put out, everything we do, have done. You'll have the archive of everything that has ever been available and ever will be available, including, we do this kind of show for, how do I say, for a different anime. For a second anime, we have a show called Second Stream where we do episodic analysis for another anime that's airing. We have like essays that we do, audio essays. We have different kind of specialty podcasts that we'll do. And if you want those, you can get. But also the $2 and $3 tier will get you a ton of goodies. It'll get you Discord access. It'll get you access to our bi-weekly After Hours podcast where we just talk about. A lot of times we talk about video games, but we'll talk about other like movies or other anime or abstract concepts, different shit that we're doing. It will be in the $3 tier. You can ask us questions that we have to answer on stream. That has kind of become. It doesn't have to be this way, but it sort of have become the province of Second Stream.
Yeah.
But every patron out there should know that like they can ask us questions in Discord, and we will get to them.
No question is verbose. Ask us anything, and give it a go.
And we must answer.
Yeah, you don't have to ask us like the most thought-provoking exam question kind of shit. If you just ask us something joking, like like I put on the poll, which of the Kanamori's names do we prefer? You go ahead and do that. it's your right and your privilege as a patron of ours to ask us whatever you want, and it can be as silly or as serious as you wish. Go nuts.
Go nuts. And, but big thank you out there to all our patrons who are watching, who are listening later. We love you guys. But we also love our audience who is not able or not willing to financially support us. Like, you guys are large in number, and we appreciate all of you. If you want to help us grow, though, you can subscribe, follow, leave a review. You could do it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, Twitter.
Can I just point out, Gero, don't ask me cooking tips. Ask Alex Schmidt for cooking tips, as he is an actual chef.
Yes. I think he'll be back next week, if I'm not mistaken, on the pod.
You are more than right. Yeah, he'll be back. We'll have Alex back for a free,
third time's a charm with the chef.
Round 3.
Fight. Look forward to that. So Shadon, if people want to talk to you on Twitter, where can they find you?
You can find me at Shadon Tencent. I'm still awaiting at Shadon Hurry Up. Some prick has been holding on to that account since 2013 without tweeting.
Twitter
I will get that eventually.
It's the worst.
Words, I like that. But yeah, feel free to follow me, talk to me, DM me, whatever the hell you want. It's all good.
Ooh, we can DM you. Are they open?
Yeah, you can bike slide into my DM if you wish. Got a twitch in your eye there, Doc. You feeling all right? You having an allergic reaction there, mate? It looks like something.
It's supposed to be romantic.
Are you having some anaphylactic shock? Rather, I mean to say.
So many food references happening now. I think Shadon would hate Food Wars. I'm just gonna put that out there now. I think he would have a love-hate relationship with Food Wars, but maybe that's all the more reason to watch it.
So it would be one of these then, basically.
Yeah, could very well do. You can find me at the Subtle Doctor on Twitter. Please at me about whatever. I don't much mind what you want to talk about, but interact with me. I need your attention.
Feed him.
Feed me those hearts and those. What is the symbol that you click to reply? Is it just a comic book bubble?
Yeah, it's just a bubble.
Yeah, feed me the bubbles and the hearts. But yeah, that's gonna do it, folks. Thanks for hanging out as usual. We will be back next week on this YouTube channel and Twitch channel for
Eizouken's 11, no less.
Eizouken 11. Holy hell. Yep. Where Kaminari sneaks into a museum pretending to be a famous movie star that she looks like. Look forward to that.
Unlike the famous movie star that they actually have technically in Mizusaki.
Right. No, it would have to be Mizusaki. You're right. You're true. So, until then, or until you hear us on the Jeweler Richard pod later this week, he's Shadon. I'm the Subtle Doctor. This has been Warui Deshou. Embrace each other, everyone, to the ends of the universe.
Good night.